if they have video running full time, if they have their point of sale machines running, they have all of these different
their machines,
their machines, all Ethernet based. You know, you look at the in the Midwest, especially these industrial plants and these manufacturing facilities where all that data is real time coming back. All of a sudden, that cabling need is bigger. But also, you look at it as we want you to get at least 25 years out of your structured cabling. And to our conversation 10 minutes ago about investing the first time, boy, for a little bit more, you can put in category 6A, and it's going to give you a lot of technology and generational life cycles that matters.
Welcome back to another edition of Push to Talk, sponsored by Beck Tech. We are here today with Pat Berry of 4 Media Group.
Hello.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Me and Pat go way back over the last few years, playing a lot of golf together.
Absolutely.
A lot of good times on the golf course.
Yep.
I appreciate you coming in and taking time today to sit down with us and tell us a little bit about what you guys do, how you're helping out customers in the technology space, because that's what we're here to talk about today. So will you tell us a little bit of what 4 Media does, who you guys are, and who you guys represent?
Absolutely. And again, thanks for having me, and fun to be a part of a great podcast with a great company and a great customer such as yourself.
Thank you.
We are a manufacturer representative agency covering 9 states in the Midwest, from Iowa all the way down to the Gulf Coast. And what we are essentially do is we represent complementing manufacturers in the IT and security space that utilize rep firms for a reason mostly of coverage. In the Midwest, in these markets we have, it's very difficult to have local representation and be able to generate the kind of revenue that's needed to continue. And they utilize manufacturer representatives because we have a unique ability of being in on projects at the ground floor, but also being at it from a consultative level, understanding that we know security, that how that applies to the structured cabling, how the structured cabling can play into power over Ethernet and some of those technologies. So, we have a really unique space that we live in. I have 10 sales representatives in a lot of the major markets in the Midwest. And it's been a really neat opportunity that allows us to learn a lot about technology that has been a really fun experience for the past 17 years.
That's awesome. Now, what are some of the type of companies that you represent at a manufacturer level?
Sure. So we're really lucky. We have some great manufacturer partners that we've had long-standing relationships with. From on the structured cabling side for copper and fiber, we've been representing CommScope since 2006. We represent a manufacturer called Eaton, which is really unique because they cover both structured cabling and the pathways and spaces and the support for that, but also then in the power side of things with their Eaton brand of UPSs and PDUs, and also the Triplite brand that they acquired 2 years ago. We represent a manufacturer called Ultronics that then bridges that space of power, but also gets into a lot of the support for access control and video pieces. We represent an organization called Talkaphone that is your emergency phones that you unfortunately never want to hear about and see about until an incident happens.
And those are like the emergency,
sure,
the lighting, the phones that are out there on campuses.
It's the one brand we represent that the bigger and uglier they are, the more effective they can be, right? To help people understand where there's an area of assistance when something is happening. We represent a manufacturer called SDC, which gets into your door hardware and door controls. We're fortunate enough to represent an organization called ProLabs that gets into your SFPs and all the connectivity for network switches and network electronics. Sure, and copper even as well. That has been a very good company to represent as well. It's been one of those unique experiences where by having all these brands and having them under our umbrella, they all complement one another. You can't have access control without the power to do that. You want all your technologies to run efficiently by having them on a backup power, which is a UPS. So they all are so interconnected with one another. It really is is something that we find is impactful to organizations such as yourself, where
Right.
you're an integrator, where your job is to walk into a customer and help be that resource for them that understands that with one fell swoop, they can get all those technologies supported. So it's one that we're very careful with who we represent, but we've been really proud for the relationships that we've had.
Yeah, and we've had other relationships in the past, great relationships. I know you guys were in the security industry for a little bit. Now you're just on the backside, more structured cable part of that, and you guys play a big role when it comes to a lot of the designing and when it comes to UPSs, battery backups, and I know that's one product line that you guys have really picked up the pace on is the UPS, that Trip Light Eaton brand. And I know, I'll throw a couple stats out there just for fun.
Sure.
I like to Google stuff as my producer Jay knows. Shout out to Jay back there from 3Link Media. 82% of businesses typically have unplanned power outages, right? Yep. So what do? The average downtime for a business is $2,300 to $9,000 per minute.
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem crazy? I had to Google that a couple times. I'm like, but I saw it on several different sites, and obviously they're taking account like the bigger businesses too, like the big manufacturers. A line shuts down or something happens, power goes out, boom, you're losing a ton of man hours in production, right? So from a power perspective, the Trip Light brands you guys are represented, and we're starting to utilize quite a bit. Why is UPS important, to our customer base?
Well, it's a great, fascinating question, right? And you start back and you think just 10, 15 years ago, the power could be out in a building, but businesses would still be open, right? They could still process everything. You could still walk into a store. Nobody really thought twice about it. But as all of these technologies, point of sale, access control, your Wi-Fi, your connectivity to inventory, as all this has come on the network, all of a sudden power has become that really critical aspect of things that a lot of people overlook. They don't think about it until it actually happens, right? And so the financial ramifications are a lot more impactful now as more things are on the network. That makes your network uptime that much more critical.
Yep.
And what we found in a lot of instances is the UPSs and the power distribution units and all the things that support that, people don't really understand it as much as you see a power strip the way you do at Target or somewhere, and you're like, oh, that'll work and go.
Right.
That's for the residential and where you don't mind things going down and no big deal. But with networks, you want your power to come down the right way when it does, or stay up the right way to help maintain the integrity of that network electronics. And what we have found as a manufacturer representative is we go around and educate people. They don't realize that there is a difference of power. And let's go through how we've talked with you. I mean, when we would talk to you guys about power, your initial piece was just, oh, well, yeah, it's there.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And you don't see that, boy, there's some secondary questions to ask that really can make an impact on a business and their lead time. While there may be an initial cost, their return on investment and their long-term return is much more beneficial to invest in that right off the bat.
Yeah, and I think as a surveillance company, door access company, we really started to see that value of power in the UPSs. Not that we haven't before, but understanding it on a deeper level, with your team. And I know we had an incident where we had a server, video surveillance server, keep going down, and Dell and everybody else we talked to do all the troubleshooting, they pointed back to the power. Right. The power grid was unstable. There was an ice storm in it, and even though there was a battery backup on there, right? UPS, there's a lot of other factors and mathematical equations that go into that to really protect your equipment. And that's why I'm glad you guys are on today. We're going to talk about this a little bit. And but yeah, we had all sorts of trouble. Think about buying a $20,000-$30,000 server. Right. The cost of a high quality UPS from Trip Light or Eaton, right? Far outweighs the cost of buying a new server. potentially if there's a power surge, or you guys call it clean power, right?
Right.
The quality power, the power waves coming through your outlets, and it's not always consistent, right?
Right.
It's alternate current. It comes back and forth,
Right.
and it makes a big difference when it comes to protecting equipment.
Well, and network electronics are a lot finickier. When they lose power, they go down, that can have a bigger impact, right? And what we also find is a lot of people invest in power, kind of going back to that earlier conversation, is a lot of people invest in power initially when there was only one technology on the network, right? It was just
Right.
your email and that. But as you bring on all these other technologies, that's more electronics, and these UPSs are designed to be sized to handle a certain amount of capacity coming in. So what we find that's beneficial, and we've been talking to you about, educating a customer doesn't always mean just going out and trying to sell something.
Yep.
It's understanding that, hey, we're going to make this investment. We want your investment to be long-term and the right investment. So it's talking about where do you see your technology needs in 3 years and 5 years? And how does that match up then to what we want to do to support you now? But also, if you invest the first time, it's always going to be cheaper than having to come back and do it again. So a lot of those consultative questions that I know your team and we ask of our enterprise customers, it makes a big deal. And what we find is you uncover a lot of different scenarios that cause them to take a step back and go, we really hadn't thought of that yet. And we find that when we have those discussions, the success rate and the happiness of the customer is a lot more than when they're just an assumption or something that goes out.
Yeah, and I know you guys kind of preach this, but the growth rate of power quality in the UPS market is going to grow to, it's going to be $18 billion by 2029. It's probably $3 billion now, $2 billion, something like that. Is that there's more and more electronics,
Yep.
right? Everybody's got TVs, everybody's got PCs, laptops, everybody's got fixed video, everybody's got switches, routers, right? That all plays a factor in the growth of this market in protecting equipment. What other things are you seeing out there that are trending? The reason why this is trending up?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do also with what we're asking those electronics to do. So you hear AI get thrown out a lot as a word, but what it really is about processing and computing.
Yes.
And what you're trying to ask those devices to do. AI with a camera is not just a throwaway. We're asking that camera to analyze and recognize and do 2-3 times more than what it was doing.
Right.
So that processing all requires power, and it all has a very direct impact back to how we size things. And what we're finding is technology is awesome. You listen to what NVIDIA and these chip manufacturers are saying they can get chipsets to do. We're going to gobble that up as consumers. We're going to ask more and more and more, and with that is going to become more need for power. And that's where I think you see that exponential growth that we see in the next few years, because we know that as this technology becomes reliable and available, people want it because it helps their businesses, it helps their lives, it makes them smarter, it makes them safer, whatever it may be. So I think that's where we see this really high growth rate continue. And it's why we want to really make sure that, folks like you who are out there working with customers day in, day out, just because you're talking to them about access control doesn't mean you can't also be having those same great questions about power and how they're using their power, because it all is going to be reliant upon that as they build out their networks.
Right. And I feel like, running our sales division here, that just from what you guys have brought to the table and educated our team about, just having that deeper dive, now we're able to go out, really educate, know the difference between an online UPS and an interactive, right? Mm-hmm. Having those deeper level conversations with a smaller business or a medium-sized business, or even our bigger, Caterpillars, ADMs, Premiants of the world that are out there that, hey, we're just going to buy this. This is what we always buy, right? That's not the case anymore. We're consuming more power. Our devices want more power, need more power. And it only makes sense from a manufacturer, rep firm, that you guys are doing this and kind of leading the charge for that.
Well, and I think what we're finding is the world is working more towards not individualized, specialized businesses, right? Look at you guys 10 years ago.
Right.
You had one discipline and you did it really well. Well, the world's asking you to be more, to have more capabilities and more in more areas of technology.
Right.
Those are the folks that we tend to work with the best in the Midwest and that we really like because it matches up what we're doing as a manufacturer rep. And I think vice versa, right? That's where that relationship comes in because we are able to understand where your business opportunities are. But my job as running the company is to also then invest in training for my people, knowledge of my people, and also in some cases I hired an engineer.
Yeah.
Right.
Dave Walty.
To help, to really help my people and the customers both, but also to help me, right? And understand where are the trends going? Where is this evolving to so that we can stay one step ahead. So I do love the relationship between integrators and manufacturer reps because I think there's a lot we learn from each other.
Yep.
I get to see market trends happen in real time because of conversations with you. And then in the same time, you know that, hey, if we're going to get ourselves into it, there's a support mechanism there. I think that gets understated a lot is the role of a sales organization integrator, but it's also why there's such a strong bond when you find the right fit.
Yeah, and I truly believe in what you guys do. I think it's amazing. We have that type of relationship with Motorola.
Yeah.
We bring our Motorola guys in all the time, right? It builds that bond, that trust with our customer. Not only that, you guys have some back-end engineering that you guys can do to help with bigger projects. Maybe it's like from a CommScope perspective, an electronics perspective, now Trip Light, Eaton perspective, right?
It's all it's all connected, and you find that every technology need has a problem to be solved. And we talk about cameras and access control. Well, it all has to start with the structured cabling it's run on to effectively deliver the power, right? If they're utilizing power over Ethernet. And then that also has to come back to your network electronics. Well, the racks need to be sized properly for heating so your equipment doesn't overheat. So you need to make sure it's got the proper capacity there. Then that comes down to the power, the backup power, right? All of those pieces are so intertwined to one another that you constantly are having to take a step back and ask those things. And I do think that the Motorola's of the world, let's take them for instance, they were a radio company, a cell phone company, and then they were into radios, and then they got into antennas, and then they're into cellular pieces. But then they also saw security, right?
Yep.
They invested in a security division, and they see that converged technology platform as being essential. So it makes sense why they're a strong partner of yours, and they complement you guys because they're doing the same converged platform that you guys are doing day in and day out.
Yep.
And I think we're going to see more of that as the world continues to grow. I think we're going to see more of that.
Awesome. What are you seeing from a CommScope side? What trends are you seeing with structured cabling? There's Cat 5, there's Cat 6, Cat 7. We still have people out there that have analog cameras, right? There's still people dabbling in the analog world, but or a digital phone world that has the Cat 3 cabling. From a CommScope perspective, just give us a little rundown of what they're doing out in the market, from your perspective, and what you guys are seeing, please.
So it's pretty interesting. The cable manufacturer's job is I always look at it as think of a highway. Our job is to build the highway so that as the cars get faster, they could all drive on it safely. When cars we weren't 70 miles an hour on the highway when Highway 70 was built and 57 and 74 and all these different, let's use that as local highways here. So the structured cabling job is to get it out there so that as technology grows, it can evolve and work on those medians. Category 6A was interesting because it's actually been around for 15 plus years, 20 years almost now, but nobody really understood its benefits because it wasn't able to get utilized the way it needs to.
Right.
What's going on now is you have a situation where we're pushing 90 watts power over Ethernet on a cable, right? Yep. So the bigger the gauge size, the more efficiently it can handle the power and run that, right? It also has to deal with bandwidth. Saying I needed 10 gig on a copper link 10 years ago, that probably only applied to a small percentage of businesses. But now, if they have video running full time, if they have their point of sale machines running, they have all of these different
Their machines,
their machines, all Ethernet based. You know, you look at in the Midwest, especially these industrial plants and these manufacturing facilities where all that data is real time coming back. All of a sudden, that cabling need is bigger. But also, you look at it as we want you to get at least 25 years out of your structured cabling. And to our conversation 10 minutes ago about investing the first time, boy, for a little bit more, you can put in Category 6A, and it's going to give you a lot of technology and generational life cycles that matters. We're lucky. CommScope is the world's leading manufacturer of structured cabling. They're the largest in the world.
And it's not just cabling; it's all the parts,
it's copper and fiber, and all the pieces
the
that go in. And you know, we don't recommend Category 6A for everybody. We what we do is, again, you have to ask the questions of what their needs are.
Right.
What are they looking to do on their networks? And if it doesn't make sense, then you kind of, it's the same thing. Do you need every camera to have AI and be at 4K? Right. Maybe some don't need to be, and that's where we have that push. The biggest thing we see right now is CommScope's released a platform that's going to address the 2.5 and 5 gig market, which is big for Wi-Fi and also could have a play within the IP cameras.
Yep.
To see if the market we think has a place there of there are companies that don't need to invest in Category 6A, full compliance 6A, but also need more than what Category 6 offers.
Right.
That's a brand new. That's been 6 weeks out in the market, and we're going to get to see all the areas where it's going to be beneficial to organizations like yourself and enterprise customers. And the explosion of fiber is one where fiber can make a company really handle a lot of explosive growth. And we're lucky with CommScope being one of the leaders there, understanding that a fiber backbone and putting in a fiber on your campus network really allows you then, as these new technologies come online, to really utilize them and take advantage of it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the only time we've really utilized Cat 6A is when we're trying to send video, right? To TVs and through devices and play videos, commercials, whatever it may be, or PowerPoint presentations, and works out really well when you're trying to do HDMI over Cat 6A, and splitting that video feeds. But do you see Cat 6A coming down in price soon as it's getting more and more deployed?
Yeah. So it has quite a bit. And the way Category 6A works right now, I always tell people there's the initial, you have to look at it for what it's going to do per run. And, as you know, structured cabling is typically sold in boxes of 1,000 feet. And you average, 8 runs per box. Well, if you look at that price delta in that regard, all of a sudden, $8, $9 per run isn't that much when you're saying, well, that's going to allow me 2 to 3 generational changes in the technology, right? So that's some of the things that we have to take a step back and kind of educate everybody on to say, does this make sense? Is this where, because structured cabling is the first place it gets cut quite a bit,
right?
But and there's a funny anecdote where everything's going wireless. Well, it's very true, except for the fact that Wi-Fi access points need structured cabling.
Still have to have the structured cabling.
But we're asking more things that aren't quite yet wireless, right? That are some things. IP cameras can't handle the what Wi-Fi does by and large, because there is some inconsistencies there, and you need constant availability of bandwidth to get all the video. So as more of these technologies come on, we think 6A makes sense, but it's also, we've seen that market really stabilize where it's cost effective. And, by and large, we see now about 30 to 35% of our customer base use that, which is up, I'd say 15 to 20% from where it was 6-7 years ago.
Wow, it's actually quite a big difference.
It's a big jump.
And a big jump from just your standard Cat 5e to now Cat 6A, which I think is awesome.
What you'll find is with fiber, it was 62.5 micron to 50 micron, and with 5e to Cat 6, the manufacturers, at some point, the economies of scale, the more you make of the Cat 6, it actually becomes cheaper than the 5e. And that's where we're heading with this, because for every 5E reel we have to make, that could be more Cat 6. So what we're seeing is CommScope, especially with some others, is the price jump from 5E to 6 right now is not that significant, and it makes sense now as we go that I see within 2 to 3 years Cat 5e really being phased out. It'll always be supported if it's installed, but I think what you'll find is it'll get phased out, and Cat 6 will become the new.
Well, and you need to run more data across, and everything wants more, right?
Right.
It needs to eat more, feeds more data. It's your basically your highway, right? From your switch to your camera, from your switch to your PC.
And I think Power over Ethernet is really it's the piece that doesn't get talked about a lot. It's really neat to see what the leading camera manufacturers out there, Axis and Hanwha and Motorola, we see Ultronics supporting that with their Netway series, looking at it and going, boy, we're at 90 watts, and I don't think we're done yet.
Right.
I think that's going to continue to grow.
Well, when you got cameras that are 61 megapixel, that single lens, or you have multi sensors that are going to be, a lot of 4K now. They're going to be 8K, right? I'm sure there'll be 16K in 5 years from now. That's just the way the market is going to trend.
It is. And first off, again, that's what's awesome about what we do. We're getting ready to go to ISC West next month. And half of that is just walking around and looking to see what manufacturers are doing.
Yeah.
And where they see their product roadmap is fascinating. And we are lucky, sitting in the space we live in, it all is going to be dependent on structured cabling. And that's why it behooves us to continue to invest in that security and now AV to that matter, because all of it is utilizing these structured cabling copper platform, because you eliminate the need for power at that device. Right. And so I think as we see that, that's where Cat 5e and even low-end Cat 6 is not going to be able to support the power the same way. And by putting in Category 6A, I think you give yourself a chance to then utilize that infrastructure as you then put in more powerful equipment at the edge.
Right. No, that's good stuff. Talk a little bit about Ultronics.
Yeah.
I know they're kind of, we always know them as, power, right?
Right.
You guys do a lot with power. The analog cameras, they'll power those. The doors, they've released some new stuff on door access, right? They've kind of released their own line, like a basic line, and
they've done some phenomenal things, and they're a really awesome organization because they're based in New York, and the owner Alan Foreman has been really involved both philanthropically in the community, but also as a strong business partner to a lot of manufacturers. What's really neat is seeing their evolution. Reminds me a little bit of, as we just talked about Motorola a little bit ago. They saw access control as the constant medium, but also saw that there was a need to take power onto the network, but also how do we incorporate that with fiber?
Right.
And what we also have seen them do that I think is really awesome is they've recognized that we need network connectivity out remote from the building. And their Netway product series has allowed multiple IP cameras to be put on a power pole out in the middle of a parking lot, which then makes that safer than it was 10 years ago. We see guard shacks that all of a sudden need an IP phone, but need a camera and need Wi-Fi. And they've come out with the ability to support that. Their Netway series has allowed distribution centers that used to have to put mini closets up throughout to handle the EIATI standards of Ethernet, have all of a sudden come up with ways now that through fiber, we can extend that out from the closet and then support PoE devices. It's really awesome is that most people think of them as a access control company, but they've really become a network connectivity company at the same time, applicable to the security space. And it's been really neat to be a part of their organization as a partner.
Yeah. Their name is very synonymous between a lot of security integrators. People have used Ultronics for years and years. Yeah. Even when I first started over 10 years ago, Ultronics that was the box we went to, right?
Right.
Analog cameras were still pretty prevalent back then. They still are today here and there, but we see them as a power box, and then it was a power box for access control. But no, it's great that they're providing connectivity to a lot of these IoT devices, endpoints to kind of connect things back together.
And there's
now.
a neat, I want to tell a little anecdotal story because I think it's pretty neat just to talk about how integrators like you have voices back and customers have voices back. They have the head end units, which are for them is Trove. One of the things that came back was you're looking at labor pressures and how do we make this the most efficient to do an install and how do we make it from a time and financial impact. And they did a really neat job of looking back and saying, what, we think these are the most common designs that are going to support the Genetechs of the world or the Honeywells and the software house. So what they ended up doing is building kits now where they ship those ready to go. So as they arrive at your facility, you're able to take those and cut down your install time by a little bit, right? Well, that has a direct impact on the consumer.
Yep.
Because it helps time is money, so it makes the install go faster. But B, also you can help pass along some of those savings as well. They didn't have to do that, but they saw where the market was heading. And I do love companies like that can say, hey, instead of selling these piece parts, hey, maybe we need to absorb some of that labor to come out with a better product that then it has that little effect, but it came a lot from integrators going, we need to find a way to do this quicker and faster.
Right.
And so I do love, that's why, feedback to you guys and then feedback to us, there's a natural chain to it, but it's funny how it really does have an impact versus what is a small idea can become a big deal.
Right. And you guys definitely have a voice to the manufacturer. You have direct lines. Not that we don't either, right? But you guys can help influence by sending emails, phone calls. Some of those people that maybe we don't have contacts to.
Yeah.
But not only we can work our contacts, you can work your contacts. So if there's something out in the field that needs to be changed, our voices are being heard, making us more efficient, quicker, and making it better for our customer base.
It's very true. And that's why I do enjoy the bond we have organization to organization, right? Because you have to, first off, you have to create a comfort that when you give feedback back, that it's going to go somewhere.
Right.
And it puts, I ask a lot of my reps for that regard because in our ecosystem is the customer, right? A consultant, the integrator, a distributor. Our job is to be an advocate for all those, but also the eyes and ears on the street. And I ask a lot of my reps to be able to ask those questions. And it's not just come by and say, hey, what projects are we working on? But hey, how did that project go? Hey, you used the Trove 2 on that last install, or, you did use that multi-sensor camera. How did that go? What did you find? What was the feedback of it?
Right.
Good and bad. And we really did a lot of soul searching to realize that our job is to do that. And sometimes it is to deliver a news to a manufacturer to say, hey, this isn't going over so well, but here's why, and here's what might make it better. And I love that part of our job. We get to see so many things as the rep. But I also am lucky enough to have some really good sales reps that know how to ask those questions. And it's what I do. One of the things I enjoy about my job, to take that for a spin, Ultronics coming out with some of the fiber connectivity pieces, we were really involved in that, but it came from a lot of feedback from integrators and end user customers. And it makes me excited to learn the next thing, right? It's really cool to be a part of.
Yeah, things are always evolving and changing, especially in technology with
Correct.
AI. It's constant with the AI.
AI is something that I'm probably even guilty of it when it first came out, being like, oh, okay, what is this really going to do? And that went away pretty fast, right? And we even in our footprint of the Midwest, one of our favorite things is, well, that's a big city thing. It's not applicable to us, but it really can be. And I think, that's one of the things with AI. I don't think we've scratched the surface yet. It's pretty incredible. As a parent of 2 kids, I have to worry not about ChatGPT for my kids, but how do they harness it the right way?
Yeah.
How do they make it beneficial to their education? How do we make it beneficial to my business? I have people that have sat through a Microsoft Copilot presentation that came back, and they're like, hey, there's got to be some things here that we can utilize. And that's all that AI is. It's new and it's
Very new.
different. And I think the companies that embrace AI are the ones that are going to thrive, because it's certainly showing how impactful it can be. And I think we're seeing that it brings a lot of neat, it harnesses a lot of neat technology at a user's fingertips.
Yeah, we're seeing it a ton with Motorola, with Hanwha.
What do they do? Like, what does a Motorola do for like AI? What is some of the things they're looking to incorporate into it?
So you get the appearance searches where you search by male, female, adult, child. The license plate recognition is there now. They're trying to tie that into a lot of the public safety stuff. Then kind of the next phase is like kind of the real time crime centers, right?
Yeah.
With the cameras all having high level search capabilities and being able to pull a plate real quick, bring all those cameras in to a dispatch center, or maybe it's to a police department, right?
Right.
And that 911 call coming in at the same time and popping up all the cameras.
Yeah.
Within a mile radius, of this block, that street corner. So that's I feel like kind of the next step. That's we're starting to see that a little bit. We're starting to see some interest in some public safety departments looking at that.
Yeah.
It's machine learning, right? So it's we also see the visible weapons detection. Motorola just released theirs. I know there's another company, OmniAlert,
Okay.
that has theirs that overlays on top of the camera manufacturers now, and it's all licensing based. And if someone pulls a gun, shows a gun, it sends alert right to mobile app, VMS, however they got it. With Motorola, we can send it right to the radio if we need to as well. So
Wow.
that's kind of the next phase that we've seen is that the firearm detection. They have the I think after that, I think you're going to see better audio.
Yeah.
For gunshot detection. There's a lot of stuff that's out there, but I don't know if it's still up to par or the standards
Right.
where it needs to be. A lot of false positives. We see Halo sensors. Motorola just bought them a couple months ago, by the way. They're integrating that in, and they, someone can yell for help right in the bathroom. Halo sensors are just basically great vape sensors, but they also do a lot of other stuff. But one of the things is someone yells for help, it can trigger an alert to the camera system, to the radios, that type of thing.
And there's a case in point. Halo developed out of a concept,
right?
But now taking more to it because a Motorola buys them, right?
Yep.
That's where the investment in technology. It's not always just it's investing in. If any end customers hear this today, it's by choosing integrators like yourself. They're investing in the capabilities of that down the road,
or
versus
that,
piecemealing it together with I'm using company X for security, company Y for structure cabling, company Z for AV.
Exactly.
It's finding guys like you that can do multiple things. It's going to make companies harness technology a lot better.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. We're wrapping up here. How does someone get 4Media involved in a construction project, just get you guys involved from a manufacturer standpoint? Maybe they have questions about structured cabling and they haven't thought about you guys, but maybe they see this podcast. How do they get you guys involved?
So on the web, we're www.4mediagroup.com, with the 4 being numeric. And all of my reps are listed on there. A lot of what we do, our line card is on there. It has access to all the manufacturer resources and web pieces of it. And we list all of our local reps' contact info. And, I feel really lucky with all of my reps can take a phone call and immediately do that discovery to say, hey, what are you looking for? Understand what the customer is asking for, and make it more efficient for the customer, right? Yeah. They don't just sending in and then getting a call and then having to have another call. We want to be able to take that initial call from them and really uncover a lot of needs right off the bat so that we can maximize how the meetings and the conversations to not take up too much of their time.
Right.
We value that from an end user and integrator. Time is money, right?
Yep.
So the web is our best way. We're on LinkedIn as well. You can search for the 4Media Group, or you can search under me. there. And, we want to make ourselves as readily available as we can throughout all the states that we cover.
Awesome. Hey, I appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much.
Are we going to repeat Salvation Army golf
I
outing
hope so,
this year?
right? I mean, we got to be
champs?
back-to-back champs, and
yeah,
I'm sure everybody will be gunning for us this year. So
yeah,
we'll have to. I know
with your new fiance, Jill.
Yes,
yep,
and
that's
good. That's
our
ringer, right?
That's
Hunter
right.
and Jill, you and I just get to sit back and
have a few
make
beers
a putt here and there.
That's right.
So I love it.
That's right. So hey, I appreciate you coming on,
thanks,
man.
Eric. Appreciate it so
your
much.
friendship. Thank
Absolutely.
you. And this is Push to Talk, and we hope to see you next time. Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube.